It's better off to make 90,000 or 70,000 a year and be ecstatic than make 165 or 219 and be fucking miserable. And until we redefine success based on being at peace and smiling when you wake the fuck up, we will continue to be confused. And that's why I'm all in, because I'm gonna be dead forever.
Gary, let's talk about how you, especially since thinking back to when you founded VaynerMedia, how you built a team that you could make sure was not just a bunch of people who looked like you, thought like you. How did you bring that intention to how you built VaynerMedia?
By being a dictator on the issue, right? Like, to me, it was funny, you said, when you were talking, I was listening, when you set up the question, you said, let's talk about let's mention the difficult questions, or the difficult things. And in my brain, I laughed. I'm like, it's actually incredibly easy. I just tell Rob, our Chief Creative Officer, that he can't hire a this or a that. Like, it's no different than the CFO says you can't spend more money than you have or you'll go out of business. I just tell him, and I just tell everybody. Like, you know, I think, you know, people get very spooked by quotas or bad or this and that. Like, intent is everything. And so for me, I was very fortunate. I grew up my entire life where my mom was my hero. I grew up in incredibly diverse realities, and I didn't come from corporate. So when I started Vayner, we had crazy all over. I mean, the first 39 people that worked in the agency didn't have a day of agency experience. They came from all over the place, and you know, I think it's really not hard. I'm always fascinated when people come up with excuses of like, we can't find this or this and that. I'm like it's just not true. And you know, I really, really am happy that it's such a conversation at such a high level, because it's changing behavior, and that's how comms work, and that makes me happy. But to be very transparent, it's just because I want it to be that way. Like, everything that is wrong at VaynerMedia is 100% my fault. Like, not 99. It's just the way, it's the truth, right? Like, I hire the chief strategy officer, and Wanda, like, may make a hire, but I'm the one who hired her. And I trust my people, thus I don't know 99% of what's actually going on every second, but in the macro it's me, and thus if I want something to be a certain way, that's on me. Whether it's the work, whether it's the way we staff, the way we pay, where we are in the world. And so I take on that accountability. That's the price of entry to be a CEO.
We are here obviously to talk today about disrupting marketing, disrupting this industry. I feel like you two are great examples in the sense that Gary disrupted this industry from coming in from outside. Greg, you have disrupted it from the inside, especially coming in from a major holding company agency and starting new. Greg, first tell me, when you had this opportunity to start Mischief, what did you want to fix about the experience you had had at agencies, and what you felt that being able to build it from the ground up, that you would be able to fix that had always bugged you about this place?
Well, there's one moment I remember when I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do and, you know, where I wanted to work. I really couldn't find the one place I was super excited about going to, and I thought that was sad. I was like, this industry should have a place that people aspire to work to. And when I was researching and looking around what agencies were doing what, I found No Fix Address, which is our sister agency, and they had a line on their website which really changed everything for me. And that line was simply, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And that was so liberating. I was like, that is what I want to build an agency around, is this idea of what would you do if you weren't afraid? And that's like giving people the freedom to do what's right and not have to worry about, you know, people coming down on them if it doesn't turn out, or you know, if the consequences are misread, whatever that is. It's like, let's just do it and have fun, be smart about it, and see how great we can be when no one's in our way.
Gary, you have mentioned often that certain things just made no sense to you when you came into this industry because you know, you were able to come in from the outside and say, why do you do this? You've talked a lot, obviously, about the split between media and creative that happened in the 80s, which a lot of advertising professionals have grown to regret over the years and that you've been working to address. What else did you notice coming into it that you're like, that makes no sense, I'm going to not do that? And do you feel that VaynerMedia has been able to follow through on being different?
I mean, I definitely feel like we're different. As to answer that part, in the front part, I mean, 2009 is a trillion years ago, right? When I came in, I didn't understand why Pepsi wasn't on Twitter. And so everything for me early on was, why do the Fortune 500 companies not understand the level of actualized consumption on these social media platforms? Why do they not understand that Facebook fan pages and Twitter are a really big deal, and this thing Tumblr's coming and seemingly could be a big deal, and YouTube's a really big deal? And why do they accept these reports that say this is how many people consumed it, when these reports are clearly flawed if you really break them down? And why do we justify all of it on internal MMMs that are flawed? And why do we justify based on headlines and awards? This is subjective creativity, which is amazing. Creative is the variable of success, but the process of getting there, it's similar. It was very similar to me in the way that I saw education. There is nothing more important in the world than education. It's how we move the needle, if you really think about it. The way we have packaged and sold education in today's world isn't grounded in common sense to the world we live in. That was my observation in the creative industry. There's nothing more important than the creative, because it's the variable of why someone decides they like something or not. The way we made it, the costs associated with it, and the way we distributed it didn't make sense for me in 2009. What's scary for me is in 2022, the world that I saw coming is very clear to everybody. It's here in a lot of ways, right? And yet a lot of it is still being done in similar ways. So most of it didn't make sense, and that's why we've gone about it differently.
Greg, you have been able to recruit some really stellar talent, some veteran talent, some rising talent. When you first reached out to them, when they first found you, because you did not just hire all your old friends, right? You easily could have. Maybe it starts an agency, they got a great network, you could pack it with all these folks you worked with at Fallon, at BBDO. You did not do that. What did you hear from that time? You're welcome to mention anyone by name if you want to shout them out, but what did you hear from them about why they were excited about coming to Mischief?
I think from day one, we created Mischief as a place where people can come and do the best works of their lives. And we'll get out of the way. We'll just create this atmosphere that just emanates, freedom. And people just picked up on that. They thought that was interesting. I think, when we first started, we didn't have a staff. And it was me and Bianca and Kevin were two people I had worked with. And we just focused on let's put some work out in the world that says this is what Mischief is. And we never wavered from that. So, I think our best new business, best recruiting tool has always been the work we do for our clients. So getting that out there and then having people like Ollie, push our message in such fun, interesting ways that I think people were just kind of naturally drawn to it. It felt kind of like a breath of fresh air, I think, in the world where everything has been kind of overthought and sanitized. And it just felt like a lot of agency communications had gone through the whole system by the time it sees the light of day. So I kind of gave Ollie the freedom to go, don't ask for permission. Just pretend like you would you would do what you would do if you were a person, not an agency. And that's kind of made a big difference for us. It's shaped our brand in a way.
Quick note that we will have time for Q&A, to at least take a few questions. So be thinking about them. I'm sure you've got several. Gary, I do want to talk about the way that you have built VaynerMedia. You and I spoke on a podcast once about when you were doing just so many Super Bowl ads. And I felt like that was the year where a lot of people were like, oh, Gary's doing some fun stuff with social media. It's a social agency. They do tweets. And then all of a sudden you're doing, how many is 4 in 1 year, maybe more Super Bowl?
We've done 8 in 3 years.
Eight Super Bowl ads in 3 years. And that was the moment that I felt like a lot of agencies were like, oh shit. They're real. What did you feel like going in terms of disruption of moving into this space of we're going to do really big, really bold work that's going to redefine social, that's going to also just get into these very traditional spaces? What did you want to do to make sure you didn't just keep making more of the kind of work that's already been out there?
I didn't think of it that way. I thought of it as when a client pays you, you should do the thing that they are hoping will happen. That's the only way I've ever thought about it. That's the only way I'll ever think about it. Thus, make work that is actually consumed and inspires consideration to do the thing, whether that's raise charity, whether it's sell peanuts, whatever it is, do that. Super Bowl is the most underpriced media in the world. 60 to 100 million people will actually watch that thing. That is profound. Social, TikTok, LinkedIn on the organic side, Facebook right now on the media side because of some of the changes with iOS 14.5. We will always follow the actual consumption of the consumer, and we will then try to make creative that is contextual to the distribution in that arena, and we will try to make as much of it as possible so that we can actually be relevant to the many different psychographic cohorts that exist in society. And that's all I ever think about. There is nothing else. It was never like, we need to become like this or that. And it goes in both directions. You know how many agencies right now are like, especially with how I've been playing out in NFT land, a lot of people have come up to me and like, Gary, we're building a metaverse for our brand. I'm like, there's nobody there. Not yet. Meta's on its way. Oculus is really further along in some ways, but at the scale, at the cost of building in Decentraland or a sandbox, like, to us, it's only about attention, reverse engineering attention, and then making things that people actually want to consume, not things that we want to make. And that level of humility is really needed in this industry.
Greg, I don't know how often you, or if really you've talked about the experience of your transition. I'll let you decide how personal you want to get about this, but I do think you have a fascinating example. And I've been in this situation, I'm sure many people in this audience have been in the situation of losing your job, which is gutting in a way that if you've not experienced it, it's very hard to describe. But then you really just rose from the ashes in this really amazing way. But you were at a really difficult point in your career where you could have just walked away, but you decided to do something different. Tell us a little bit about where your head was at in that moment, and what advice you would give to anyone who ends up in a situation like that.
Yeah, it's never easy, I've said that, but if you think back to March 2020, everyone was in a state of shock. We were experiencing something that no one had ever experienced, a massive pandemic with lockdowns and financial crisis that we had no precedent for. So it wasn't like it was just me, right? So when it happened, I kind of like took a step back and go, okay, the world has shifted. I can feel it. So the next thing I do, I want to be in the part of the world the way it's going versus trying to retrofit something that has been, rooted in the past and trying to keep up. So I almost thought of it as liberating. There's a moment of like, oh shit, now what am I going to do? And is this it for me? And then that didn't last for less than a day. Otherwise, I was like, okay, I have this blank slate in front of me. And no one has built anything based on what's happening today because we're still in it. So what if I could be the one that built something that felt like it was of the moment for tomorrow? And just the way we work and just the way agencies felt. And I felt like clients wanted that too. Immediately when we started meeting with clients, it just got the sense that they felt we were somewhat refreshing because we didn't approach meetings the same way. We're just, we're all just, even clients, I think we're feeling like we just need to be human at this moment. We don't need to be corporate robots. And I think that of the times, I think everything kind of came together to form Mischief in the way it did. And, we still continue to do that. Just, let's never, we try to eliminate the phrase, that's how we always did it. As soon as you free yourself from that and just go, okay, maybe we did it that way, but today's a different day, so just keep it going.
We are about to get to Q&A. If you don't have any questions, we're just going to spend 15 minutes talking about Baby Nut and Puppy Monkey Baby. So I encourage you to have some. But before we get to that, Gary, I did want to ask about comfort zones. I know you're not a person who's always been held back by such things, but a lot of people in this industry do feel like they're constantly having to press themselves out of a comfort zone of a business that you could have stayed in the businesses you launched at the beginning. You could have sold them and just gone to Majorca or whatever, but you kept launching new businesses, VaynerNFT. Do you find yourself in pushing yourself to always try something that's going to be a little different, a little harder than the last thing you built? And what would you tell people who maybe feel like they're not pushing themselves hard enough?
I don't think about it. Thanks, brother. I don't think about it as. Thank you. I don't think about it as. Thank you. I don't think about it as pushing myself at all. I think about it from the standpoint of I want to be happy. And so, when I was 7 and everybody went outside, it was fun for me to make a lemonade stand. That was my DNA. Some people like to sing, some like golf, some like cooking, some love music. I just really think it's cool to play business. I genuinely enjoy it. And so it's not like I want to push myself to win, I love competition and all those things in business, but it's genuinely fun. I'm curious. I'm like, I wonder if we can do this. I'm curious if this would work. But what does drive me in the decisions of the new companies we start in the holding company is this is something that we can do better at a better price, which is valuable for what the ecosystem wants. This is something that I think consumers are going to do at scale. So I reverse engineer from what makes me happy, and what makes me happy is trying new things. To me, my creativity comes in operations and starting new stuff and trying to operate it to success. So many of my successful friends are like, man, if you ever just focused on one thing, you would fuck. And I'm like, I don't want to. I don't want to focus on one thing. I'd rather fail or do less success than not do my art. And my art is trying to stand up different businesses, try different things. I really enjoy it.
So you asked me what makes Gary interesting. I think we learned a lot about that today. But I would say, I haven't thought about it. It's like Gary is 100% in everything he does. You never see him going through the motions, man. And you're just fully committed, even in every conversation. So that's not.
Greg, you know what it is? Back to everybody on some real human shit with each other. You're gonna be dead forever, right? When you die, it will be dead forever. You have not been alive for a very long time. Before you were born, Earth was really fucking happening for a long ass time. We are here for a fucking nanosecond. Unfortunately, that will be, and you may be surprised me saying this, because for me, I'm gonna do me regardless. Unfortunately, the world, even in France, unfortunately, the world works a lot. We work a lot. If you eliminate sleep out of your life cycle and think about how much of your entire life will be work, it's a high percentage. Stay-at-home mom and dad, work, right? To not fight for that to be at least good, fuck solid. And what are you thinking about if you dislike it? If you are genuinely not happy waking up doing what you're doing, you literally need to stand up right now, call your boss and quit. I'll lend you some money, you'll pay me back. And so to that point, I'm all in because I'm incredibly logical about this. It's a nanosecond. To compromise just peace of mind, and this is why we need multiple different conversations. You know how many people could start great companies as well if they just lived within their means? Greg may have the capacity with his co-founders to build a very, very big agency that may create a certain level of finance, right? But it blows my mind that people don't realize they could start something that may not pay you millions, but it might pay you tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. And I just don't understand how people don't understand that it's better off to make 90,000 or 70,000 a year and be ecstatic than make 165 or 219 and be fucking miserable. And until we redefine success based on being at peace and smiling when you wake the fuck up, we will continue to be confused. And that's why I'm all in, because I'm gonna be dead forever.
And this is why it's good to do a panel with Gary Vaynerchuk.
It's just true.
I'm going to take a break from moderating to have a little existential spiral, and we will take some questions, starting with one of my favorite people on earth, Nate Nichols. When you get the mic, just introduce yourself and then tell us your question.
Nate Nichols, founder, creative director of LATAM Group, and co-founder of VaynerShip in Action. And I love this panel because I'm motivated and inspired to be on it next year.
My man.
And so, been running the shop for 10 years, and I'm clearly not a white dude. And I have non-traditional background. So GaryVee, I'm looking at you.
Yes, sir.
And I'm just wondering, because I have made millions in my tenure as an agency operator, but there's still this gap, right? From going to the six-figure budgets to the $500,000 to the $1 million budgets, right? And since I've been on this battle for like 10 years, how do you go and transition from, these $250,000 budgets to like getting to the $500,000 to 8 Super Bowls in a year? Because I got in this game like you to do Super Bowl ads. So where do we go from here?
Nate, I think there's so many variables to that, right? One, there's the external, and keep the mic just because we make, first of all, on the record, 13 years I've been in this business. Some of the most fun, satisfying conversations I've had on WhatsApp, by the way. I'm always like, where the fuck are you in the world that we have to be on WhatsApp? But I really enjoy your thoughtfulness. The answer is, it comes in the form of sales. And sales comes in the form of marketing. And so I think for you personally, if we were just chopping solo, which is how I'm gonna answer it, I always want you to make more content personally. That's how I feel you get there. I think you need to do more. Back to, I'm looking at you, GaryVee. When I watch when you do put out stuff, and obviously you put out stuff to get us to think socially and things of that nature, but I just want to see more what if campaign content from you on LinkedIn. Like, yo, you see what Crocs is doing? If Uggs did this, this would happen. I think a lot more people who've got ideas should put them out for free, which every time I tell agency owners this, they get mad at me. They're like, I get paid for this shit. I'm like, cool, keep doing what you're doing then. For you, I think it's a content play. I think you're incredibly articulate, you've got charisma. I mean, you're pretty fucking good looking, which never hurts. But what's most interesting to me is you've got good ideas. And I've watched how you've navigated when you do conferences and things of that nature. I think you need to put out more content about marketing and creative ideas, because the serendipity of those ideas will find people and it will give you more at-bats. The world is about more at-bats. The world needs to do its part to give more at-bats. We all can sense that combo, but we have to go also into here and say, I've got to create more at-bats. I believe content, specifically on TikTok and LinkedIn for you, around your ideas, will be a lead gen to new business. Ones that lead to 7 and 8s.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, buddy.
If you meet one person at this festival, meet Nate Nichols.
I agree.
What an amazing guy. Who else has questions? Greg or Gary? Jason will bring you a mic.
Hi, I'm Marco. I work here at Whaler. I've got a sort of two-part question. So you mentioned the metaverse and like no one's there, so you don't go there. What's that balance of innovation, like when you're thinking with clients who are like, I know no one's there, but I want to try it and learn. What's the balance between those two?
For
things?
clients, it's different than for ourselves, right? I was watching CryptoKitties in 2017 and saying, okay, holy shit, that's exactly what I thought Ethereum could do when I bought it in 15. But I had to wait until 21 to get loud because there was enough scale starting to happen and my intuition was like, it's about to really happen, right? TikTok, there's unlimited content for me on Musical.ly. I was watching it, so I think I always remind my team, our responsibility is to make it be meaningful for the client. If you're doing a metaverse, again, in VR metaverse activation, for a B2B activation at the World Cup, for your VIP clients, if you're a brand, I can wrap my head around that. They're gonna go to Qatar, they're gonna put out, that's a B2B activation. If you're gonna say, hey, we're gonna sell millions of this, or everyone's gonna know, it's up to us to respect how much consumption is actually happening. So I think the balance is internally, we have to stay curious, test, learn, understand. But if we're gonna ask a client to spend lots of money on something, we need to make sure that there's actual consumption. And that is, by the way, it's so fascinating when I come to this town and talk about television commercials, because I've been very firm on where I sit on this. It's nothing other than actual consumption for me and the cost associated with the consumption. That's it. It's a very binary game. I just want people to actually see it. That's a very important part that this industry needs to talk more about.
I think agencies have to be ready before their audiences are, because we have to be there when they come. And networks only work if there's other people involved in it. So right now, this is the learning process. And I will say this, in maybe 7 years, more people will be on the metaverse than are on the internet, Facebook or whatever that they were doing 10 years ago, because I have a 12-year-old daughter, and she was born and raised in the metaverse playing Roblox, and every one of her kids are proficient at the metaverse. So I'm learning from them, but they will grow up at second nature. That's just the other place they play, the other place they live, and see concerts and things like that. So I think the people in this conference are doing due diligence by learning about it, because we'll be ready when it's ready, and I think then that's the time to bring in clients.
And the industry's struggle, in my one person's point of view of the last 20 years, is the context of the distribution of the creative, right? Like, to me, the metaverse will come at some point, and then my intuition is that this industry will not be great at it because they're gonna try to force feed what they want in it instead of reversing the behavior out of it. It is stunning to me. The only word I can use is stunning to me, how little creative work is being judged or talked about here that was done on TikTok when it's the most consumed platform in the world. It is a fucking joke.
One thing I've admired about this agency is that when you put stuff in a certain platform, it is so inbred in that platform. It felt like it was done by people who were enjoying that platform. I think early in like TikTok and some of these other emerging platforms, even back in the days of Twitter, brands were coming in and doing what they did everywhere else and just retrofitting it to that environment. And I think what Gary has managed to do, and I think that's one reason why he's got that yacht out there, is because he can organically live in that environment, and it doesn't feel like advertising. It feels like content you just happen to stumble on.
And to me, to really wrap this in for all of us, when I look at Nadia, who just joined Vayner, or Rob, or Mike P, Greg, Nate, like, when I look at them, this is what my brain does. The first 5 years of YouTube, Fortune 5,000 companies put on their YouTube channel their fucking television commercial. It's YouTube. When I look at them and I say to myself, the talent of storytelling these people have in their soul, what they could do if they made an actual YouTube video that people actually wanted to watch, that would inspire that person to actually buy something, versus they've been conformed to 30 seconds. It's the distribution of television sucked out the creativity. Here came the internet, gave us YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, IG, gave us all these things, and for some reason, the subconscious of the industry doesn't want to take advantage of it and continues to put on a pedestal the work in the form of a 30-second video distributed on network television in a world where people only watch streaming and their phone. It is bananas.
Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much.